In 1961, one of the worst mining accidents happened in the province of Dalarna in Sweden. An earthquake hit a village in the middle of the night, creating a massive crater above the mine. In May 2020, the city of Kiruna went through the biggest rock burst in Swedish history. The resulting earthquake cracked the ground and the old city was moved 3 kilometers away. Kiruna has the world's biggest underground mine, which causes over 100 tremors per year, and they can never be predicted. In New Kiruna, a group of teenagers has gathered to drink and party near the mine. A boy crosses the fence to relieve himself, ignoring his friends when they warn him that it's a forbidden area. There's a very deep fault line in front of him and he gets scared when it trembles. Soon 2 more teens cross the fence to look for their friend. They stare at the fault line and almost fall when the boy startles them. The duo angrily pushes him off for his bad prank and notices some bugs on the ground running away from the crack. The boy gets ready to leave, but when he turns around, there's another tremble and the duo disappears. Then the boy gets on his knees to inspect the crack, hearing another quake coming before he falls as well. In the city, Taga has a birthday cake ready for his son Simon. He's worried because the boy hasn't come back after he left with some friends last night and won't answer the phone. Meanwhile, the mine's head of safety Frigga is doing a routine check on the mountain equipment when she receives a call informing her that there's been a light quake by the mine. She explains that the mountain is still unstable after the last incident and those small shakes are only natural. Moments later, Frigga takes a break from work to watch an old family video. Back then she and Taga were still married and Simon had a wonderful birthday party. The last text from Simon was sent last night and he was very angry with her, but she still sends him a happy birthday message assuming that he's at Taga's. Afterward, Frigga picks up her boyfriend Devours at the train station. During the trip back to town, Devours comments on the state of the mountain and Frigga explains that people are slowly moving out. Eventually the mine will have caused so much damage to the local ground that nobody will be able to live in this area. Suddenly they find a group of protesters blocking the street. They want the mining to stop so people won't lose their homes. Frigga just keeps striving to force them to move, however Micah stays and even lies down so the car almost crushes her. Then Frigga comes out to scold her, revealing that Micah is her daughter. An argument ensues since this could make Frigga lose her job, and Micah points out that it's not more important than people's safety. They're interrupted by one of the neighbors, who may lose her home soon but still wants everyone to get along. When they arrive home, Frigga notices that Micah put a piece of gum on a picture to cover Taga's face. She and Devours try to get intimate but they're interrupted by another light quake, so Frigga checks the radar on her phone. The numbers are low, confirming this is just the mountain adjusting itself as usual. Later Devours notices the cracks on the ceiling and worries about what the quakes do to this town. Frigga hears the neighbor's dogs barking like crazy outside, which is unusual behavior. At that moment Taga arrives and explains he can't find Simon. Things get awkward when he sees Devours and Frigga is forced to do introductions. Then Micah arrives with her girlfriend Isla and complains about Devours being there when they were supposed to be celebrating Simon's birthday as a family. The group assumes Simon sneaked back into the house after he went out with friends, so they take the cake to his room to surprise him. However, Simon isn't there either and Taga notices that his video game console is missing too. At that moment Frigga gets a call from the mother of Simon's best friend, who can't find her son either. Frigga promises to call her if she hears anything. Suddenly an earthquake hits the area, making the house shake for a few seconds and cracking the wall. Frigga and Taga check the numbers on their phones, noticing that things are getting worse. The mine then calls them to ask for their help because the earthquake has caused a cave-in. Before leaving, Frigga tells Micah to find her brother. On their way out, the adults notice the dogs barking getting worse and how they run in the opposite direction from the mountain. During the trip, Taga asks Devours some uncomfortable questions, but Devours is determined to be friendly. At the mine, an employee shares the details. Over 1,000 people have already been evacuated, but there are still 112 people stuck between levels 520 and 750. They contact the evacuation team who confirm that everyone is on their way up except for the last 22. Frigga has lots of work to do and tells Devours she'll see him later, so he decides to leave. Taga follows him out and tells him that Frigga is married to her job, so he mustn't expect much from her. He also points out that his kids don't need a new father and that Frigg hasn't signed the divorce papers yet. Afterward, Taga joins Frigga and Erica in the car to enter the main mine tunnel. Frigga can't help saying hi to the plaque on the wall commemorating her late father. At noon, the car reaches 520 meters underground and the trio has to continue on foot. They meet an employee with a drone, which is following the debris to find the location of the cave-in. They start searching the area while hearing some rumbling on the surface. When Frigga gently knocks on the wall using a hammer, a bunch of rocks immediately collapses. The women are stunned for a few seconds but thankfully they only get some scratches. Then Frigga checks the new hole in the wall and is shocked to notice that the other side is hollow. They send in the drone and discover that the cavity is huge. The drone explores for almost 2 kilometers and the group realizes the hole is expanding toward the town, so Erica decides that they need to evacuate. Taga thinks an evacuation is a little too extreme, so Frigga has to explain that the town will collapse soon. The team is making their way out when they hear some rumbling. Frigga touches the wall to analyze the situation and when the rumbling gets worse, she tells everyone to run. As the tunnel starts to collapse, the group runs as fast as possible and manages to hide in the rescue chamber just in time. Meanwhile, Micah continues to look for Simon and learns from another teen about the party. She tries to call her brother, but he doesn't answer. As she walks around town, Micah keeps stepping on bugs. At home, Isla and her siblings also notice lots of bugs running, as if trying to escape. Suddenly a hole opens in the sandbox and a little boy gets stuck as he slowly falls. Isla immediately runs to rescue her brother, but the hole still swallows his tricycle. At the fire station, Devours feels the quake too. The firemen are getting dozens of calls with problems caused by the tremors, like broken water pipes, runaway dogs, insect infestations, and a bus that got stuck in a crack in the road. Devours is surprised to hear that life in Kirana is always like this, and his new boss tells him to think about whether he really wants to move here. He also mentions that Frigga and Taga have been back and forth many times over the years. Eventually Micah checks her car and finds Simon's best friend sleeping in it, plus a bunch of empty bottles on the back seat. The boy refuses to open the door, so Micah breaks the window with a rock. Isla appears to scold and an argument ensues, so the boy uses the chance to run away. Micah drops the conversation to go after him. As they cross the road, Devours almost hits them with his car. Micah tackles the boy to the ground and Devours rushes to separate them before things escalate. The boy explains he didn't steal Micah's car, Simon had been using it, so he borrowed it to sleep in after drinking too much. He tells her the location of the party and how everyone somehow disappeared. Then Micah asks Devours for his car, and when he takes out the keys from his pocket, he accidentally drops a box with an engagement ring. Micah knows about the unsigned divorce papers and tells Devours that her mom only does that to annoy her dad. The duo heads together to the party place near the mine and they hear a phone ringing. They cross the fence to follow the noise only to discover the huge crack in the ground. Looking down reveals the phone ringing on top of a rock, which makes them realize what happened to the partygoers. There's another phone on the ground, so Micah decides to call Simon to locate him. However, they can't hear his phone. Devours also calls his boss at the fire station to tell him what he's found. In the mine's rescue chamber, the team is using oxygen masks to breathe. They discuss what to do and realize they can't wait for rescue because they need to warn the locals about the upcoming danger as soon as possible. When the rumble outside stops, they leave the rescue chamber and look around to discover that the rocks have blocked the exit. Erica remembers the rescue ladders and Taga points out they haven't been used in 20 years, but they have no other choice. The team then takes another tunnel to try to find the stairs, however the fallen rocks have blocked it too. They can see a hole among the rocks that looks dangerous, but it may be their only salvation. Frigga starts crawling through it, only slowing down when she hears the rocks moving. After some effort, she manages to make it to the other side. Taga comes next, however no matter how hard he tries, he has to come back because he's claustrophobic, which is giving him a panic attack. Frigga tells him to think about Simon and starts singing a family song to calm him down. Then Taga decides to try again, but in the middle of the tunnel, he gets stuck and starts to panic, feeling how the walls are closing around him. A frustrated Frigga goes back into the hole to help him, only for Taga to pass out. Thankfully Frigga manages to pull him out with her bare hands, and when Taga wakes up, he thanks her with a hug. The drone guy crosses the hole without issues, but when Erica tries to, a rock falls on her leg and leaves her stuck. Frigga crawls in to help her, however more rocks keep falling and slowly crush Erica to death. As Frigga yells in despair, the men have to drag her out before this hole collapses too. Afterward the trio finds the stairs and finally manages to leave the tunnels. Frigga immediately calls Micah, who tells her about the big crack. A desperate Frigga explains that the town will collapse and urges her daughter to leave, but Micah is worried about Isla and goes back to town instead. Devours tries to stop her to no avail and he gets nervous when he sees a light post falling. Frigga asks the mine employees to activate the warning system. A siren starts wailing through town and the locals receive texts telling them to evacuate. Soon a traffic jam takes over the streets as everyone is desperate to leave. Taga and Frigga have come back to look for their daughter, and while they wait in traffic, Taga says that after this, he'll move on and let Frigga have a new life with Devours. At that moment Frigga sees a teen in the crowd and thinks it may be Simon, so Taga drives on the sidewalk to go after him. He dodges a bunch of people, but eventually there's no room for the car anymore, so they have to continue on foot. A crowd immediately surrounds Frigga to demand an explanation. At the same time Micah finds Isla and tells her what's happening, urging her to leave quickly. Outside, Devours sees an old lady pass out and tries to help her. Suddenly cracks start to appear on the streets all over town. Micah gets in the car with Isla and her grandmother, but when she tries to take off she can't because a tire is stuck in the crack. Soon the town starts to shake and windows break in the buildings. While Frigga and Taga urge the crowd to run away, the cracks grow larger and begin to swallow the cars. Devours runs back to his vehicle to help the old lady out while Isla tries to assist Micah, whose seatbelt is stuck. Frigga sees this from a distance and tries to run toward them, but the crowd is panicking and slowing her down. The car is sinking into the crack, however Devours still jumps on it and after some struggle to move, he gets Isla out too. At that moment, everyone is shocked to notice the mountain collapsing. This creates a huge landslide that is slowly coming down toward the town. Devours gets inside the car and cuts the seatbelt so he and Micah can then escape through the windows. Afterward, the whole family reunites and runs together, helping every person on the way who fell or is too shocked to move. Isla takes a stroller with a baby from a frozen mother and pushes it herself. Frigga worries when she sees a car run over the teenager she was following before. The landslide soon reaches the town, instantly destroying every building that it touches, creating huge smoke clouds, and killing the slower people. After several minutes, the landslide finally stops and the survivors can finally catch their breath. Micah sees the stroller roll out of the smoke and has a breakdown when she realizes that Isla fell into the hole. Frigga and Taga check on the teenager killed by the car and are relieved to see it's not Simon. Then they concentrate on comforting Micah. Moments later, a whole operation takes over the town to rescue the survivors, and soon the hospital is packed. Frigga continues to search for Simon, but she can't find him among the rescued crowd. A teenager overhears her and shares that Simon is at school having a video game party with his friends, which explains the missing console. Devours takes a moment to pray and Taga joins him to thank him for saving his daughter. When he sees the ring in Devours' hand, he steals it and puts it in his own pocket, saying he can't do that to his family. Devours immediately jumps on him and they start fighting on the floor. Micah fails to separate them and calls for Frigga, who immediately makes them stop. Afterward, the family leaves the hospital to go looking for Simon and they're shocked to see the huge crater left by the collapse of the mountain. When they reach the school, they find a teenager at the door, but he's too shocked to answer questions. The family rushes inside, noticing chaos and destruction everywhere. The corridor that should take them to the computer lab is full of debris, so they have to cross it carefully. Micah finds a body and is upset to realize it's a classmate. Suddenly they hear Simon's voice coming from the end of the corridor, so Devours volunteers to move ahead first to check for any dangers. Unfortunately, the corridor is blocked and Devours has to stop Micah from crawling through the vents. Frigga will be the one doing the climbing and Taga ties a cable around her while they discuss their relationship. It seems they're about to find a compromise, but they're interrupted by more debris falling from the vents. The men decide they should find another path, however Frigga notices a small hole and immediately dives in. The rest of the debris collapses behind her, separating her from her family. After assuring the others that she's fine, Frigga starts her search and finds more dead teenagers. In the computer lab, she discovers a girl impaled on a metal rod and her son Simon stuck in a sinkhole. Suddenly part of the ground collapses into the hole, but thankfully Simon moves out of the way just in time. At that moment the family manages to move some of the debris across the corridor too. After covering a body with a jacket, Taga, they enter the room to find Frigga tossing a cable at the girl, who is across the hole. As she tries to grab it, her movements cause more ground to collapse, and the shock kills her. Then Devours grabs a hose and ties it around Frigga so everyone can work together to lower her into the sinkhole. Once she's at the right distance, she starts to swing the hose. All the weight causes yet another piece of the floor to break and sends her flying right into a metal piece that impales her leg. The pain is unbearable, but Devours tells her not to remove it or she'll bleed out. Pieces of the floor continue to collapse and the girl's body also falls into the hole. Simon stares at the hole in horror before noticing that Frigga is about to pass out from the pain, so he talks to her to keep her awake. They discuss their last argument and get to reconcile. The others bring another hose to secure the floor, however the opposite side still breaks and a big piece of furniture falls into the sinkhole. Thankfully its cable leaves it hanging in the middle. The rock where Frigga is stuck is starting to break too, so Simon jumps on the hanging furniture and carefully crosses to the other side. Now he can hold on to the rock to keep his mother from falling. Micah then notices a fallen column and slides down into the sinkhole, jumping at the last second to reach her family. She puts her belt around Frigga's leg to improvise a tourniquet, and now the siblings can push her off the metal piece. Frigga yells in pain and finally passes out. The siblings quickly bring her in and wake her up. Afterward Frigga ties the hose around Simon and the men pull him out of the hole. The edge of the sinkhole is starting to break too, so Micah and Frigga have no choice but to jump on top of the hanging furniture. Their weight is putting strain on the cables, so Taga rushes to stop it from slipping. Devours and Simon bring Micah out quickly using the hose, but Frigga is taking more time. Taga notices a spark on the cables but refuses to let go. He tells his family that it's okay before he gets electrocuted and passes out. The furniture sinks into the hole right after Devours takes Frigga out. Simon runs to check on Taga and Devours follows him to do CPR. Taga whispers something to Devours before collapsing. At that moment a rescue team finally arrives to help, but sadly Taga doesn't make it. Once outside, the paramedics take care of the survivors. Devours takes out the ring and shares a look with Frigga. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.